everyone, and welcome to episode 32 of the Heart Space Podcast with myself, Jasmine, and my wonderful co-host here, Alicia.
Kia ora, guys.
And today we have a very mysterious and intriguing guest on today that goes by the name of the man with no name. How are you today, brother?
I'm good. Thank you very much to both of you for having me on your podcast today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I know that you're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to digital overlords and, what is happening within our society today. There's been this overreach of power within the digital realm. So my first question I wanted to start off with is, could you explain to the audience what is a digital overlord?
A digital overlord is someone who wants to enslave or dictate every single element of the digital world and digital system, which is not limited to banks, your online data, your identity, every single element, and I guess use that information for their own control and financial gain.
Right. So when you say they, who would that be? Who would that be that will be in control?
Well, we're sort of on the convergence between the natural world and that of the artificial, where I guess we're sort of in that augmented reality space. So a good example of who they might be. So the New Zealand government plans to roll into digital governance.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a soft rollout on the 1st of February and then a full rollout on the 22nd of March. So what does that mean? Well, essentially what that equates to or means is that the traditional artificial persons that they operate, i.e. the birth certificate and all those legal identifiers, they plan to, I guess, take those elements, make them digital, and sort of marriage them up to the digital finance and identity systems. And so what that means is that every single transaction, every element of who you are in the natural space is documented via their cloud-based services.
Yeah.
It's
To me, that would be sorry, sis. I was going to say that's a huge violation of our privacy.
That's exactly what I was going to say just then. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's scary to think that, people are, I guess, blindsided by it. Would you say a lot of people are aware of what's coming, or, because the government has done a good job at putting this, like wrapping it up in a present and making it look like it's for our own good and it's the way of the future.
It's like convenience and everything like that.
Exactly.
I think we've got digital wallets now in our phones and stuff like that. I feel like that's a part of like conditioning us into this whole new way of, a form of transactions, a digital currency, all that kind of stuff. Would that be right?
Yes, there is an element of that. But then I guess, we sort of understood with the International Monetary Fund and the World Economic Forum, and I guess now with the partnership with the United Nations, is that, they were going to be moving into this digital space, digital government or governance, and they were going to, I guess, use those elements that we're familiar with now and sort of progress them forward as part of that transition.
And would that include cryptocurrency? Is that, in your opinion, where they're trying to steer the whole of society?
Well, it makes sense that if you had or used the ledger-based system to track all forms of payment, especially if you centralized digital currency, they would be able to see, what you bought for that week and that week's shopping. And I guess that's a huge concern. And it just makes me think about, 1984, a sort of Orwellian, dystopian world wherein, you bought a hamburger that week and, according to the social system, you weren't allowed a hamburger that week. And so, we'll punish you for,
doing what you were supposed to do. Yeah.
Very much a big brother society.
Yeah.
Yes.
So China for a social credit system. And I know that we've touched on this before, but just going a bit more in depth with it, because I don't think that society really knows, the lengths of what this means. I've tried to tell people the digital system is, I would believe, the biggest tracking system ever, to the point where we get punished for making a transaction or doing something wrong in society, and then they have control of our funds, where we go, and all that kind of stuff based on the system. Would that be on the right lines?
It would very much be on the right lines. I mean, we've seen, what's happened in Australia with their payment card system.
Good example.
With Centrelink. We've seen what's happened in China. We're seeing now that what's happening in the States, the Federal Reserve is moving to digital. So I guess there's multiple different elements when it comes to the digital world and the digital system. And so it's just important to have an understanding of what those digital assets, which is, your information, your intellectual property and all those different core elements, as well as your digital identity, having ownership of those things.
There is a counter argument from people that are pro cryptocurrencies or, this digital assets that
Yes.
That it's more safeguarded in terms of, and if you're within the freedom realm and you've done your research, we've discovered that a lot of the money gets embezzled into other people's accounts. A lot of these elites also are able to launder money around the country. So in your opinion, do you think it would be a lot safer in that aspect because of it being so well protected and, we've got that big brother approach of tracking these finer details down to a T? There's no loopholes for, I guess, people who are doing corrupt things with money?
I guess there's always going to be loopholes. I mean, we've pretty much seen, from 1933 till now to present day, we went from a gold-backed currency, to silver, then to, I guess, the fiat, the mass production or overproduction of money with no value, hence we have this hyperinflation scenario. So there's always going to be those who are going to use the various technologies or system to benefit themselves, I guess. As far as the security, there are at the moment some good practical measures that we can take, and hence the reason why I said I think the key to bypassing a lot of it is going to be having that ownership.
Mm.
Good point there.
Right. Yeah. I want to just sort of lead this in a slightly different direction, because I think it all integrates as one. When you say, obviously, there's all our information, so records, like all the data of who we are.
Yes.
And in regards to, so we know that COVID, that, in the little thing in the arm, that had this has got, I think, a lot to do with this digital system.
Absolutely.
And I think they already know who is and who isn't. So obviously our health records are being stored in a database where they're going to go through and see who is and who isn't. And then they're going to put harsher penalties on the people who aren't in this new digital system.
Well, I guess you bring up a very valid point. So when we were actually combating the vaccination system, we were mining through the data, and we had discovered that they had partnered with Amazon Web Services, or Amazon AWS, using their cloud-based services to store that vaccination data or data sets. And they were, I guess, using as well Microsoft Azure, and part of those elements, and sort of aligning with the global banks. And so we sort of have a situation now where all our information is held, or being in part held offshore, with someone I would consider to be a door-to-door salesman. And really 30, maybe 40 years ago, Jeff Bezos would have come to my door with a little catalog, and I would have bought, Tupperware or whatever goods and services. That's how I view him. It's just a door-to-door salesman. So, I mean, really, would you want your private information being used?
Absolutely not.
Not your health records. Not especially your health. That's your private. That's private.
Exactly.
It's private, and it's quite infuriating. And I don't know.
An overreach.
I don't know how. I mean, anyone that watches this, how they feel about our health records being stored offshore. Like, what's the agenda there? That's pretty dodgy. Like, why would that be? And that should get people questioning why.
Well, I mean, we don't have the infrastructure, and I guess it seemed easier for the political government to, I guess, contract with those foreign multinational companies.
How does a company like Amazon get access to these? Who would give them the permission to do so?
The permission would come from, in this particular case, the digital officer at the Department of Internal Affairs, and the relative public officers. And so we have a style of government which is decentralized, which means that each public office or a government department actually can run independent and has the right to, I guess, create their own contracts and agreements suitable to the statutes that they're under. And so what this has meant is that under the current NZ health system, they've been able to approach Amazon for the various services and Microsoft, as well as other tech companies, to, I guess, provide them with necessary infrastructure to really
without our
operate.
permission too. Is that correct?
Yes.
Crazy.
Yes, very much so.
So that makes you, like, you know, again, people that are watching this, like, doesn't that make you question our government, the systems? Like, what gives them the right to do that with our information? We did not consent to that. It's our information. Like, that's wrong.
The way that it works is that it all comes down to ownership. And so because they create the artificial persons, that gives them the legalities over the legal entities in which they create. So in a digital system, the bypass would be that we would own 100% of ourselves in the artificial realm, and as a consequence, with the necessary sort of defenses, that would equate over to the natural person as well. So or the living being.
So my mind's just going, I'm just trying to think, because, like, for me, like, it has been quite a hard topic to get my head around, the whole digital thing.
And I'm very much on the fence too, because my husband invests a lot into cryptos too, and he has a whole other opinion when it comes to the digital currency realm. So but I love hearing two sides of the fence, because this is where it's at the moment, where we have to present all sides of the spectrum of what is happening in today's society, because as we know in the media, a lot of the information is very biased and one-sided, and we're only getting one side of the coin. And that's why this platform is so important, and just to get people thinking, like you were asking before, Alicia, it's such an important question. How does that make people feel? Because just sitting here and I'm taking it, and I'm like, because this is all new to me, I'm just like, wow, like, how does a company like Amazon get that permission? And it infuriates me with your answer, because they've done it through this whole, the birth certificate and how we've been tricked. It all goes back to that discussion we've had in previous podcasts.
And I honestly urge people to go check out those episodes with Wade, that From the Eyes of Freeman, because then, this episode will probably make a lot more sense as well. But so see, for me, like, I'm thinking, okay, like, what does this look like for my future? How am I going to conduct my business? Like, what's this, these are the things that I'm thinking about, because by what you're saying, brother, it sounds like it's the inevitable. We are going digital. This is like part of the Great Reset.
And we see it with a lot of celebrities are endorsing it at the moment.
This has been,
Sorry, what were you saying, brother?
Sorry, I apologize. So
no
what
worries.
I was about to jump into was that, we've known about the Great Reset, and we've known about, the fourth industrial revolution, and I've been able to see right up at what they've got planned right up until the 7th and 8th. So they obviously transhumanism is really where things are ultimately heading.
I'm glad you touched on that.
So we're sort of in the early stages. We're in, we have an opportunity and a privilege, I guess, to be able to lay foundations or disrupt those certain elements. And so we're actually ahead of the game in a sense. We're actually understanding where they're trying to take things.
Yeah, the true
And so-
agenda.
The true agenda. And so in March, even though it's a short period of time or a short runway, at least we still have at least some time during the Christmas New Year's period to establish those safeguards.
And do you think collectively we can make a difference? Sorry, there was a bit of delay there, eh? Do you think collectively we could make a difference in terms of what's happening, or is it up to the individual to educate themselves and then, seek what best fits their financial situation?
Well, I guess ultimately there is that element of personal choice. And, I think whether it's as an individual or collective, I think really ultimately the decision lies with us.
Yeah. All I know is that I don't want to step into this new system and be consistently monitored and controlled and being like, oh no, you didn't do something right, so we're going to cut, you're not going to get paid this week, or you're not allowed to go, more than 2K or 3K out of your area and all that kind of stuff. Because I did watch a little I wouldn't say it's a documentary, but it was quite educational on how this whole digital system will work and what it will look like for just, the average being on a daily basis. And I will tell you, it did scare me a bit. We've touched on this. It put me in the pits of fear because it's something I really don't want. So I guess it's up to me to, figure out how I'm going to move through this, I suppose, in a way that benefits me. I don't know how to do that yet, but I will try to figure it out.
Well, the system, as we know it, it's all commerce, it's all commercially based.
Yeah.
And so once you understand their position and you understand, I guess, your rights, and you understand how to apply them as far as business and everything else.
That's actually a good point. You just made me think of a question there. What are our rights when it does come to this whole situation?
Well, I had probed the various different government departments for a while to understand what those rights would be. So they've set up a majority of their systems, including when they had the vaccination passes through the International Standards Organization. So that sets a pretty clear guideline for what those definitions or rights are. So we understand that anything that is a digital identity or a digital asset has a element of the right to use. So that pertains to, okay, if the digital government wants to use one of my digital assets, do they have the right to use that asset? And if not, I guess, how do then I, as the individual or collectively, deal with those business matters, and I guess recoup on the breach or the loss of income because of that. And that's a lot more straightforward than I think what people realize.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds quite daunting to me, but I think when you break it down and you go through and have a look for yourself, it's like, oh, okay, I get it, I see it as just tackling the system again, kind of like what we've been doing this entire time, because you know who you are as the living man or woman, and they can't take that away from you, regardless whether you're in a digital system or not.
We got to this point in time too because of people's blind compliance too.
Mm.
Well, that's it. And even with the vaccine passes and that whole vaccine system,
that was a warm-up system pretty much into how, who's complying and who's not, who's signing in, and doing all the contact tracing and wearing the mask. It was all, in my opinion, an exercise to see who was going to follow orders.
And the QR itself was a coin-based token.
Oh, I did not know that. That's interesting.
So that in itself sort of raised some serious concerns and alarm bells. And when you actually go through the metadata and you go through the API data as well, and you strip everything apart, you start to follow up on some of the things that it's linked to. For example, we learned that there was a connection to Heartland Bank. We know them as an Australian bank, formed in Western Australia. But then what we didn't realise was its connection to other banks such as Westpac and so on and so forth, and Westfield, and all those major companies and commercial elements. And then we could start to see that, oh my gosh, these people are really hell bent on control and greed and manipulation.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but just within the last week, we've had, I guess, the government and the media announced that they're merging the banking system into one. Am I correct in saying that you're able to transfer details more easily to other banks?
Yes.
Is that in tie with what they're trying to roll out? Is that the start of it, you would say, of what they're trying to do with this whole Big Brother system?
Well, what it comes down to is taxation as well.
Gotcha.
So we knew that as part of the Great Reset that they would crash the global financial system to launch the new system. And so by crushing all the various different elements of society, or pressing them to virtually nothing, we knew that they were going to come in and capitalize on all those foreclosures, all those those debts, or all those different elements. And so I would say, yes, they're very much rolling things out, to have that control. I mean, if Klaus Schwab says that we will own nothing and be happy about it, that's quite a statement to make.
Absolutely.
That's always sat with me too, and that's just like a classic slogan for this whole agenda. You'll own nothing and be happy.
I'd like to reverse that onto them.
Well, I guess the only way that it's going to happen is if we actually have an understanding and we take back the ownership, and we operate those commercial elements. Because anything that's artificial, as far as the person is concerned, is ownership and business. And that's what it comes down to. And if you can operate in a digital space and maintain your what they call self-sovereign identity, according to Microsoft, then you can pretty much have ownership and control of all those different elements, including the assets and everything that flows on from that. I mean, there's so many different elements in this conversation that we're having today. I'm trying my best to sort of nail or knock on the head.
Oh, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job there.
The ones that are most prominent.
I guess a good way to wrap this up for the viewers today is to offer them some advice, or where would you suggest that, or what I should say, would you suggest they look into, or could you offer any resources for people to look into to further educate themselves after hearing this conversation?
I guess the advice that I could give today would be, one, understanding the self-sovereign identity.
Yes.
Understanding the digital assets, and how that pertains to physical documents as well, and where those are stored and how those are stored. Understanding, I guess, the nature of the persons, because once you have that understanding and you have that foundation of where you actually stand in the physical realm versus their artificial digital document world, it just makes things so much easier, I guess, to go and have an understanding of the different elements around commercial liens and how those actually apply during the invitation to treat phase of an agreement or a contract.
That's some good advice there.
There's so many different elements, and it's difficult to sort of, I feel, raise sufficient enough awareness when there's such a short time frame in which to operate and combat a system which is not just a domestic system but a global system.
Yeah. Good point. Well, this is a whole part of centralization, isn't it? That one world order. That's it. One world government, one world religion, one world currency. It's all, people want to say it's a conspiracy, but here we are. So it's
getting more evident as the days rolled out.
Yeah, it is getting closer. But I think people struggle to see what's happening because, when it's reported in the media and stuff, it's all wrapped in cotton wool fluffies and like with a little bow, like, oh, this is going to be so great. So they don't really see the depths of where this is going and what that means for us as in being individual beings. We're not going to be able to have our freedom, to just go and do whatever, make a transaction wherever, like, I'm going to say for drug dealers, your days are over. You're going to do it. I'm just going to put it out there, because every transaction is tracked. So, this is huge. And maybe we can wrap it up here, but when next year hits and everything like that, if you're still around, brother, maybe we can have you back on,
absolutely,
discussing like, where it's progressed to and how to navigate through that. That'll be really, I think, helpful for the viewers as well as us here as the hosts.
Absolutely. I've learned so much today myself, and thank you for taking the time out today and being here and sharing it with the audience. I know that a few people watching it will be quite a bit to get their heads wrapped around, but I like the advice you gave, because it's those stepping stones people need to take in order to understand their true power. It goes back to learning the common law system and who we are as a living being. So thank you so much for being here today and your time. Is there any final words you'd like to leave us with today?
The only thing I'd like to really say is thank you for allowing me to have a voice on your platform, and also that everything is commerce. And if you understand that everything is commerce, then that when it comes to you operating your persons is key.
Beautiful. Nice way to end that. Thank you so much for coming on today. Really enjoyed this conversation.
No,
And
look, thank you.
And thank you for everyone who tuned into this episode today. If you haven't already, please hit the like button below. And as we know, our friends and family are waking up more and more every day. We're seeing this rollout of people that are starting to, see the lifting of the veil as such. So if you know someone who is on the brink of their own awakening right now, be sure to share the link of this episode with them today. But thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope to see you on the next one. Much love, everyone.
Bye.
Ka kite.